that trade paperback flocking to the
I am joined by the amazing Allison O'Toole, Dan Price, Andre Owen, Fred Kennedy,
Chip Zdarsky. Chip, thanks for coming.
What's up, folks? I'm your host, Conrad, on Wednesday Night Reviews, and tonight we're joined by Sidney, who's going to talk to us about ImPURRfect, their new Kickstarter that's out now. So if you feel so inclined, ignore my face, go click the link below, go find it on Kickstarter, and back it now. That being said, Sidney, thanks for taking the time to come on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's not every day I get to talk to someone who's made a comic about cats. While I personally fear them, I think they're little menacing apex predators that terrify me. I love the passion and, of course, the memes. So, Sidney, just to sort of jump into it, for the folks who've maybe never seen your face, never heard your name, or have no clue what ImPURRfect is, who are you?
I've been studying art in various forms for like 18 years, and it took me a long time before I got my first serious book, and that's ImPURRfect. Some would say I waited a little too long, but I really made this book. I have some ideas and a message I want to spread, and I wanted to make sure I was servicing it with the weight that I thought I needed. I'm just, right now I'm married. I have 3 cats and a kid, and I'm mostly taking care of my son. And on the side, I've been working on this book. Well,
busy man. Wow. You know what? If you don't mind, I want to, we'll start here. We'll start with the next easy question, which is your book. What is ImPURRfect, and how do you say it? How do you say it correctly?
I just how it's written, I guess. I would just say it how it's written. ImPURRfect. I guess you could emphasize the purr, because that's how it's spelled. You asked what it is. I had like a bunch of problems in my young adulthood. Right? Like now I'm 36, but I have a lot of problems. And I did not see the solutions reflected back to me in a meaningful way in much media or art that was for mass consumption. And so I found solutions and answers and help. And I wanted to go, okay, like I don't see this anywhere, so it's got to be me doing it. And so I saw like in 2016 that like Mark Russell did this Flintstones book. And I was like, all right, like this sells. People like this. People like something that is sort of tangential to what I'm getting at. Now, the fact that it was like a major IP probably helped. Maybe it hurt though. Who knows? I remember. I saw that there's like, there was somewhat of an appetite for that sort of writing. So that's what I dove in, and I was like, I'm gonna try this out. And so that's what I did. I had studied sequential art in college. And I was so obsessive about figuring out the right process and learning how to draw and learning how to color and doing all the technical things that I didn't have anything to say after a certain point. Like I had none. So I was like, I'm just going to make it about all the personal revelations that I've had that have allowed me to be a functional person. Like the things that have allowed me to be better at like loving my wife and understanding my family, connecting with my family, even though there were problems, and that kind of thing. And, the major elements of despair that I think are important. Like, let's really like break down what this is. So a lot of this is influenced by like, the professional help that I got, but really a lot of reading that I did, like Ernest Becker's The Denial of Death, and a lot of these like social criticism books by this guy Christopher Lasch. He died like in '94, but he wrote all these books that I felt like demystified a lot of the more confusing elements of society that I had to navigate, that I found impossible to understand and navigate. Yeah, there he is. Yeah. That guy, yeah. But like a lot of it looks like political commentary, and it kind of, I mean, a lot of it is, but it's, and a lot of people take him. He can be misunderstood really easily. But yeah, that guy's ideas, I was like, yeah, this is helping me. And I think some people might read it and go, this is extremely cynical, but it's helpful. I was really struggling, and this stuff was helpful to me, because I just couldn't understand why people that cared about me and care about society made some of the decisions they did, in child rearing when I was coming up. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand
interesting.
their anxieties, right? Like the anxieties that adults had just went right into me. I was like a cup that just took it all in, and it was so baffling, because I didn't understand it, but I internalized all of it. So it was a lot of work to undo it, but I feel like I had some revelatory moments, and I realized, like, okay, I'm doing, like, one of the reasons that all the issues I had were so difficult to address is because they're also normal. It's also issues that everyone deals with. It may not debilitate them to the extent that it did me. It may not make them as angry and as blindly rageful unhinged as it made me. But like, that's why it was so difficult to identify, because it's so widespread and just normal, and a lot of folks can deal with it and a lot of folks can't. And I was in the latter. I needed help dealing with it,
Yeah. Andrew, like that's one of the things that I've truly, and again, like, people who watch my show will probably be very tired of me saying this, but one of the coolest things that I enjoy about indie comics is because it's just people getting their stories out, the stuff that they're passionate about, that they want to share. Indie comics will forever have a more diverse set of ideals, stories, and nuanced takes on things than, like, Batman. Which, love Batman to death, absolutely. I've got two on my wall over here, but like, it just can't handle that. So I find it fascinating, and especially a lot of indie stuff tends to deal around mental health. So the fact that this was able to so accurately for you let you get out all of those very specific and identified problems that you were having. Kudos, by the way, because that stuff is not easy to do. That kind of self-reflection, that getting the help and processing all that is incredible work you've done. And then, yeah, for you to come out and share it with us in a funny way, that is awkward and weird and just off the wall, and yet communicates the point. Because, like, when I first got the book, right, like, I saw, let me pull it up for the people out there. So for the people watching, this is the cover of ImPURRfect. Yes, that is a toggle on top of this cat's head, which I will be asking you about, Sidney. But I love it. It's straightforward to the point. You already know what this book is about, or at least I assumed so. And then I got into the book, and it was very much so not what I expected. Highly more exploratory and self-exploratory and culturally commentative, as well as especially of online culture, critical. So you know what, we're going for it, Sidney. When it comes to Christopher Latch's books and how that helped you sort of process and create this, was there a specific lesson or set of lessons that helped you get there?
Yeah, it's real simple. And it's more than Lash. It's this guy. It's a Jungian guy named Robert Moore, Ernest Becker. It's a lot of folks. Wilhelm Reich. But yeah, the main lesson is this: people have needs and limitations, and if they're not respected, problems happen, real bad ones. you know, and yeah, and and I kept. I realized over time, like I bought into a lot of the macho sort of I'm tough. Let me just be a total masochist and overwork myself and be blindly ambitious. I subscribed to this because it was what I felt the culture offered me in place of like, I don't know, I think relationships. So I was bad with people, but I could be blindly ambitious, and that made it okay.
Okay, yeah.
And so I ended up feeling like, no, I'm just needy, and I'm an emotionally needy person. And paradoxically, I became much more competent, calm, loving, more grounded. I had the appropriate emotional reactions to what was in front of me. When I had my needs met and when I respected my limitations. That this made everything better, and that's how I was able to develop the technical ability to pull off this book. Is that I can handle all the overwhelming elements of making the book. So yeah, the lesson is that I wanted to have a protagonist that was both needy and intelligent, because I don't see that enough. And I think that's important. I feel like when I see protagonists, a lot of times, like there's two like defenses against their own neediness. Either the person is like a smart dude and they're too smart to be needy, and so they're just very glib and have all these witticisms. But that in and of itself is needy, like to be compulsively witty and to compulsively dump out one-liners. You need to be admired. Like it's a form of neediness, and there's no need to be macho about that. Everybody needs to feel admired. And then on the other end, there's people that are just aggressive and like I'm going to smash everything and I use force for everything, and that's what makes me not needy. But like that's needy too, because you need to project an image of force so that you feel safe. But I wanted to have a character that is intelligent and needy and consciously needy, not somebody that covers it up by being glib. That was sort of what I wanted. I didn't see enough intelligent figures that were not glib.
Interesting.
I wanted to make one. Yeah.
So really quick here. Good evening, Steve White. Thanks for checking out another episode of Wednesday Night Reviews. If you can, please do, again, jump on Kickstarter, check out ImPURRfect. But keep this tab open so you can listen to us talk, because this is going to be really good. So with everything you've just said, Sidney, what I find fascinating is I am not certain which of the two protagonists you're referring to. Are you referring to the cat or the owner? I feel like you're referring to the cat's owner, but there are points at which the cat also kind of fits that description. So I'm going to pull up the page for the Kickstarter page, because it's got both of them getting attacked by what is the large cat's name?
Her name is Fat Layla. She's based off of my real cat, who is famous on Facebook.
Oh, wonderful. Is Fat Layla easily accessible?
Oh yeah, you can find her on Facebook. She's got like over 60,000 followers.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess to sort of complement what you've just been letting us know about the story and the concepts behind the characters and their character design, can you explain a little bit about who your two protagonists are?
Yeah. So when I was referring to the protagonist, I was referring to the cat. The cat is needy, and the owner. But the owner is also needy, but it's in a way that is the cat doesn't really think about.
Yeah.
Right? The cat doesn't think about why he's needy. The cat is just kind of fixated on why he's so unreasonable, and why he's doesn't think clearly and doesn't seem to like care about his needs. That's kind of what the cat is fixated on. But yeah, I mean, they're both kind of not able to meet the other one where they're at. Yeah, that's kind of how I have it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating too because, and again, I'm normally the one that has to pull creators back and say, "Hey, no spoilers." Like, let's get people to get this book and check it out. So if you find I say something that's too spoilery, let me know.
Okay.
But what I think was one of my favorite moments, and I'm just gonna see if you've got it on the Kickstarter page, is Fat Layla. So many covers of Fat Layla. I love it.
Oh yeah, no, those are prints of her that are in one of the tiers, yeah, or a few.
Oh, people are going to be happy.
Yeah.
We will talk about that soon. Because we're at about the point where I want to talk about the cost.
Yeah.
But so you don't have it on the page, but basically, at the beginning of the story, the human decides he's going to get a cat, which is wonderful. Many people get it. He adopts the cat, which is even better. People adopt, don't shop. And we learn quickly that this cat, not only does it think, which is already a great way to start having like philosophical conversations about needs because we can see what the cat is thinking. We learn the cat can talk. And without giving away too many details, some events go on and the cat becomes very concerned, not only for, hey, I'm hungry, I need food, but concerned for their owner with what they're doing with their life. And like, hey, maybe we should change some things, which sort of harks back to what you were talking about with having your needs met, being quippy and outright boastful and thinking I can be productive instead of being human. And it's that moment for me was fantastic because you did such an interesting way of like philosophically examining it with this dude and his cat. So I guess one question that I do want to ask is, when it came to lining up those arguments, like the philosophical ideas and presenting them the way you did, was there any particular challenge in writing that because you're doing it with a cat and a person?
The challenge arose from making it digestible to other people through any means necessary. As for it being between a cat and a human, that was sort of that was a good setup. I credit my editor with pointing this out. Things fell together serendipitously with the concepts, but no, I mean, I think that people see the cat, and I just wanted that sense of raw neediness. But I mean, it's very much like a child. But I remember being 6 years old and needing people to comfort me, and them saying something reassuring in a very dismissive way. And like these kinds of things that like casual sort of insensitivity, where I guess people think like my good intentions inoculate me from criticism of being too insensitive, which look, I'm guilty there. I'm one of those people, but like, yeah, I just don't see that put under the lens a lot. And there's no consequences for it. But yeah, man, dude, that dialogue, like just cutting, rewriting, making it a smoother read, organizing it, who says what, why would they say that, and keeping it simple. That was a pretty arduous writing task. But I these ideas are important, and like the intellectuals that I was reading did not write them in an easily digestible way. And I wanted to make it digestible and fun and entertaining. That was sort of the goal. Yeah.
Honestly, fantastic job. Like I am certain that anyone who's at least 25, maybe even younger, has definitely at some point, with if they're any level of intellectual or at least self-reflective, has wanted to pick up a philosophy book, start reading it, and gone, "What the hell are you even talking about?" So
Yeah.
I know firsthand just how hard translating that kind of concept into plain, understandable, popularly digestible is, and you've done a fabulous job.
Thank you. Yeah. A lot of my philosophical, like a lot of the philosophical sort of elements of this were born, like the reason I tried so hard to understand it was merely because it served my mental health and my understanding of things. It was not, I was curious because I needed help and I needed answers to feel better about my life.
Yeah,
and that's
100%.
what gave it. And I was like, yeah, like, so I think the first step there was getting interested in these Jungian analysts, and then from there, it's like, okay, if you're able to understand this, like understand a lot of other things, so it became a lot simpler. But yeah, thank you for the kind words. That was the task, and yeah, I feel really happy with the book. So. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad to hear it. A simple, I hope it's simple. I don't know if it will be, question. And then I'd love to get into the different tiers and the stuff you have available. Um, it, Fill in the blank. If someone likes X, they will like Imperfect.
I, I, hmm, I guess you could say Rick and Morty, but that's too
Oh,
obtuse and pretty egotistical almost. But I feel like there'd be a big crossover there.
yeah. Actually, I feel like that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. If you like Rick and Morty, you will like Imperfect because it's got that intellectualism. It's got the off the wall crazy fantasticisms. Perfect. Then Sydney, we are at the point. Actually, we're a little past, but that's fine. Where I'd like to ask about the tiers, the cost, the price, all that good stuff. So I'm gonna bring up again the title page, and I'll have on the right there all the tiers. Could you sort of walk us through what is the minimum tier someone can do to get a copy of this book?
Yeah, the minimum.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you didn't finish. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, do the minimum for the collectors like myself. Do the physical, and then whatever your sort of crazy tiers are, go for it. Let us know.
Yeah, here, let me pull it up because there's a lot of them. I got it. I want to make sure I'm accurate. Yeah, so I have the thank you tier because everybody told me to put a thank you tier in, so I did. And then more tiers. Yeah, so I have the thank you tier, but the digital PDF of Imperfect is $10. Right, so that is the first tier I have on there. Or that's the second tier. The third tier is the physical book and the digital PDF copy.
Nice.
And that's $16. Yeah, I mathed it out. I was trying for 15, but maybe I'm not experienced enough. But I was mathing it out, and 16 was what I had to go with in order to make it safe. And then after that, it's something called the Fat Layla Lovers tier, and that tier is full of prints and a sticker and a postcard of Fat Layla, exclusive Fat Layla merchandise, along with the physical book and digital PDF of Imperfect.
Nice.
Now, there's a comic lovers tier where I knew that a big base of support would come from Fat Layla lovers, but I really am a sequential artist. I've been one for a long time. I really wanted to get comic fans in on my book. I didn't want it to just be a silly throwaway cat book. So I have a comic lovers tier where I did like a mashup of Bruno, the cat in my book, with Deadpool. I did a Bill Sienkiewicz tribute, which which is that image on the far right. Yeah, I did Demon Bear, but Demon Layla. And then you get a little sticker of Baby Bruno right there on the lower right in the comic lovers.
So cute.
Thank you. Yeah. And then in the ACT pack, which is the one that you're on now, you just get everything. You get the Fat Layla lovers and the comic lovers. And that tier's $50. The Fat Layla lovers and the comic lovers are $25. Together, it's $50.
Okay.
Yeah. And then after that, I have a retailer tier. But that's not for retailers. Yeah. After the ACT pack, I have the ACT Pack Plus, which is everything plus a 6x9 drawing of a character or a cat that you want.
Or a cat.
Yeah, private commission, and that's $85. And I think there's only like 2 slots left of that. And so I think if you scroll down, you'll see some of my examples of commissions. Right. After that, I have more sophisticated. Bigger. It's the same pack, but bigger commissions. Yeah, that's Lobo.
Oh. Yeah, Lobo. Nice. Like you're. I want to be, because normally I have to clarify it, and if I have 2 guests on, I'm like, you do the writing, you do the art. You've done this whole book. You drew it. You wrote it. Other than your editor, of course. But you kind of. Yeah. This is all you.
Yeah, I hired a letterer, but it didn't turn out how I wanted, so I had to learn how to letter.
Oh, wow.
So I did it. I read that Nate Piekos, the Blambot guy, read his book, and then taught myself how to do it. And I really did everything. I spent a long time learning how to draw, so yeah.
So you've got the bigger retailer tier for 100 US. It is US, right?
Yeah. For 100 US, it's like $20.
It's pretty darn good. And what is your
ACT Pack Supreme? The $135 tier is the same thing as the ACT Pack Plus, except the private art commission is bigger. It's somewhere between 11 by 17 and 12 by 18. It'll be somewhere in there, depending on the complexity. And then after that, I have the ACT Pack Plus, and that is $400. That is a balls to the wall, gigantic art commission, along with everything else. But it can be of any kind of complexity, so long as it's something that doesn't like gross me out or revolt me. Right, because I have to.
You have to
focus
do
on it for a long time. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Wow.
But if you look at the book, you'll see that I'm capable of some pretty complicated, tedious art. So that's what I'm opening myself up for. That's why the price was so high.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just this, like, that hits. Like, there's something about that image that's really cool.
Thanks. Yeah. That's
so.
Lila.
Hell yeah. I guess something that I'm curious about now, I based on the art and what I just reading the amount of comics I've read, you're a digital artist, correct? So you're mainly doing this all on computer?
The inking is traditional. Right?
Oh.
Yeah. The inking is traditional. All of this was inked traditionally. I did the layouts digitally. Right, so I do all the thumbnailing and the tight sketching, but then I print out the sketch and I lightbox over it and produce finished pages. Yeah. So right.
I have to ask, like, because again, I've interviewed a fairly large number of creators. I go to a lot of Comic-Cons and sit in a lot of panels and hear artists talk about their process and why they do what they do and how they do it. And often when people do multimedia, they'll be like, oh, I hand do my lettering or my my figurative drawing or whatever. I do my pencils. Maybe then I do my inks and then I'll digitally color it. Because they're like, well, I could tweak the colors perfectly and all that stuff. And then you can go over your lines with the digital to make it super crisp. You're inverting that. What do you feel are the pros, the cons? Like, why do you like that process?
Oh, so this is digitally colored, right? So I ink it by
Okay.
hand. Yeah, I ink it by hand,
Okay.
and then I scan it back in and digitally color it. So,
Wow.
just to be clear,
Okay, thank you.
I
Yeah.
ink by I ink by hand because it's the most satisfying, and I need to I don't know I need the threat of the surface being ruined in order to keep myself focused,
Yeah.
right? Because if I don't have that threat lingering, like I need to feel like threatened in order to keep my attention and to be diligent. Yeah, that was sort of how it went. I don't ink digitally because I don't think I can handle being able to infinitely correct things. I can do that with the colors, but like for whatever reason, when I ink digitally, it always looks bad. It looks worse.
Interesting.
You know, yeah. But my pages are huge, right? So they're 15 by 22 and a half, but inches.
Massive.
Yeah, they're big. I've always worked that way. You'd think that it takes more time, but it really doesn't. I just use a thicker pen. I just use thick pens with it too. I like working big. It feels good. I don't like being huddled over, like doing small detail because my breathing gets shallow. Right? Especially
Interesting.
if I'm getting frustrated, my shoulders are all narrowed up and I'm doing this. Like it is so conducive, like anger skyrockets if my breathing gets that shallow. Like I can't handle it emotionally. I just start it's so much more frustrating to do it that way. And like, so I work really big. I also a lot of those backgrounds are improvised in the inks, right? So I have the structures built up, right? There's a lot of whiteout on the page because of that. But I figured out that like I have the buildings, I have the window size. I just need to like lightly guide them onto this sketch, and I can improvise it in the ink. So if I screw up or whatever, I just put some white on there.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, my pages are huge, but they're all the panels are on pages. None of the panels were drawn out of a page. So,
That's so cool to know. I also find it interesting, like what I'm enjoying about talking about you is Cindy is um how well you understand yourself in how many different and interesting ways that you do. Because there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I can't do this. I have to do it this way because this bothers me. And I don't know why, but it does. And I've talked to artists and writers who understand themselves well. They get their trauma, they get their stuff that they're dealing with, but maybe not how to deal with it, maybe not to get through yet. Right? They're still processing that, and making comics is a part of that process for them.
yeah.
For me, what's fascinating about you is you've come out on the other side, and you're like, people need to know X, Y, and Z. And also when you're working, like I believe a standard comic, like the industry standard for making a comic is 11 by 18 as your basis, and then they scan it and shrink it and make it into your standard comic page. The fact that you're just like, nope, bigger, to make yourself comfortable while working,
Yeah.
I love it. And I have to ask, do you have all the originals for the book?
I do. Yeah, I have them.
That's
You want me to pull some up? I can go grab them. They're right in that closet over there.
if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, like whatever you
Yeah.
want to show off. Yeah, this would be so cool.
Yeah, here. I'll show this off.
Massive pages, just absolutely massive.
Oh, I got a couple of goodies. All right, yeah, okay.
what other really? I haven't shown that. I peeked it, but we're gonna show this page too because it's on the Kickstarter, so we're not hurting nothing. Here is the
Yeah, I
ultimate
have.
menace of Layla.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So here are my pages. Here, I have that one right here. Actually. So,
Oh my god, the detail in that.
oh, it's upside down. Whoops. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it's still super detailed, right? Like that. Yeah, and it's very clean because there's no graphite. I take the digital sketch and I go right over it on the light box in the inks. So
Wow.
sometimes for like hands and stuff, where like things get intricate, and I might pencil to get it like perfect. But yeah, for the most part, like I just go right to inks. And yeah, and I have this other one here. Right there. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You honestly, again, like, so the good news for this Kickstarter is it's fully, like, it's cruisingly fully back. You've asked for in Canadian. Oh my god, that is gorgeous. Those
Thank you.
buildings. Oh,
Yeah.
like, so
Yeah.
for the campaign, I'm guessing you've asked for 500 US because it's 690 Canadian. I'm going to say this for you, Sydney. In Canadian dollars, not American, in Canadian, you've raised $4,543, which is,
Okay.
I'm going to ballpark it 3,400 US. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it sounds about right.
Okay.
So you're like cruisingly past. But my brain is like, those pages look so good. You should probably somehow put out and sell it like an artist edition with like extra large pages so people can see that.
Yeah.
Because that is so clean. Like, holy cow.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I chose to do this in a way where you saw those pinups I did. That's like my normal way of drawing. I wanted to be endearing in this book, so I chose a different style, and I had to really look at my process. Like, how do I get really clean? And I thought, well, I'll just go right into the inks off of the sketches, and then I need to figure out which line widths work in different situations, right? So I took some Jeff Darrow pages, right? And
Okay.
I blew them up to the size that I worked, and I looked at the different line widths he used at different situations. Had a 10-pack of Stabler pigment liners, and I was just like, all right, like what corresponds with which line width? All right, this is the one I'm using here. This is the one I'll use there. I was very methodical about it, and it turned out it worked. I just looked at the different situations and used pins that corresponded with that line width. I got better and better. I usually ink with like a brush or a pilot parallel pen or something like that. But here I used tech pins. But yeah, dude, I was my work is usually not that clean, but all those pages are. I'm really happy with it.
I mean, I think, Sydney, now you have to say, usually my work is really clean, but when I'm doing commissions, I'm a little more freehand.
Yeah.
Because, like, whoo, like, one thing is interesting too, like, about how you came to the line weight you wanted to use. One of my earliest guests, Jason Lapidus, who does a part of it. He's a part of a team called Group of Seven Comics, who puts out a comic called Group of Seven. He absolutely adores. I am forgetting the artist's name now. They did the books for Parker. Oh my god! I hope he doesn't watch this because he will just shame me. Bear with me. Darwin Cook. Darwin Cook wrote it and did the art on it. Yeah. So Jason studies Darwin Cook, a bunch of people, but for him, he's all about like economy of the line, and using as little as possible to get as much as possible, and sort of the
Yeah.
feel. Um, and then for you, like you're almost the opposite, where you're like, this thing works perfectly. I love this thing. I'm going to study it, break it down, and figure out how I could emulate it perfectly. And then I'm sure after doing the pages of this book, you just kind of, it's in your brain and you've got your own adaptation of it. But it's just cool to see the different approach.
Yeah, my approach is definitely like not super. It's all technical. It's not super sophisticated, you know. But yeah, being economic like Alex Toth or Darwin Cook. Yeah, there's a lot of value to that, and I would love to go in that direction. You know, with some of my work, but you know, this is what, like, I wanted the story to feel a certain way. I wanted it to feel excessive. Like Jeff Darrow's work is funny because it's excessive. Like I think
Oh yeah, yeah.
like I think it's comedic, and I kind of wanted that element in this book. I thought it was appropriate. People might look at that and say, "Oh, that's really, you know, detailed and da da da." And it's like, yeah, I didn't use any spot blacks though, so I didn't have to sit there and like plan spot blacks. You know, I just had to draw everything out, and I knew from my background in illustration that I'd be able to color that. I think that's where a lot of people might trip up. Is that if you're drawing that way, you're leaving a lot to be done in the colorist arena, and drawing that way and composing that way means that you need to like really set up situations for the digital coloring to work. You're creating, it's like each step is creating opportunities for the next step. Right. So, you know, I was really, it was a good learning experience there. Colors, it took me, I have an illustration background too, and there are some traditions that they rely on in order to create powerful compositions that I don't see in sequential art so much in the past, like, I don't know, 40 years. So sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Originally with like Hal Foster and all them, it's a technique. It's just value structure, is what they call it. But okay. I thought I'm gonna head in on this. Like because I think that a lot of colorists are on a tight deadline. And they may not get the opportunities to create like a powerful visual hierarchy. And I wanted to give myself some time to see how far I could push that, just to see, what is it like for a piece of sequential art to have a visual hierarchy from the digital colors as opposed to the inks and the blacks. Mm-hmm. It's just not something I had seen a whole lot of. I had seen it, but I thought, I want to see more of that. I want to see what happens if the whole thing is done that way, where the hierarchy is done in the colors alone. You know?
Now, by that sort of hierarchy, you're referring to, and again, I want to put this in layman's terms, so I understand it.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's all good. I love it. Jargon, but from context, because of what you've said and what I'm understanding in the book that I've seen, you're talking about like the level of detail in the variation of coloring and how you're allowing the color in your book to take precedent over the actual drawings of it. Like for instance, you're not using a whole ton of black, heavy inks for shading. You actually use differences in hues and saturations. Like even, I'll bring it up again because it's such a good cover. But even in the cat in the hand here, there are so many different versions and shades of the cat's skin color. Whereas in a different comic artist may have chosen to color it far more simply. Is that sort of what you're referring to, or am I way off base?
I wouldn't say that that's way off. I definitely do some sophisticated things with a bunch of hues that don't need to be there, but make things look more interesting. But definitely, what I'm really referring to is arranging the darks and the lights so that the image communicates in about 1 second as opposed to 2 or 3 seconds. So I want to minimize the amount of interpreting that the reader has to do. Right. And if that means that some of my beautiful line work that I did during the inks may not be as apparent, then I need to accept that, because communication, I think, is what makes things effective. Instantaneous communication. I don't want the reader to have to do a lot of interpreting. I want it to be instantly obvious. You see what I mean? And like, it's a matter of seconds. That's really where I break it down. Like, is like, does this communicate in 3 seconds or 1 second? Because that is actually a big, that is significant. That's the difference between putting down a book and keeping reading it. So yeah, that was sort of the key there. And that has a lot to do with how I'm arranging the darks and the lights. Like on this page, I made sure that the maximum amount of contrast is on the figure, right? The brightest whites are on the figure, and it's against a dark background. So that's where it goes. Yeah, and I made sure that similar lightness, like, is distributed throughout the image, so that the eye kind of follows it. Right? If I distribute it too much, if I have too much of it, you can't process it as easily. So it's about making it easy to take in. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's fascinating. So when I wasn't aware of the language to use to describe exactly that. Like a big thing that I talk a lot about, Sidney, is especially with art, comic art, sequential art, is leading the eye, right? Because leading the eye through a comic page is extremely important to let people know, where do you start? Where do you go next? Especially if you have a complex page that's not just panel, 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 but like big panel with chunks popped out and word bubbles everywhere. You need to lead that eye exactly where it has to go. So what you're referring to, just so I'm crystal clear here, is you can see my mouse. So the fact that you've got like the brightest point being like the white shiny bit of his bald head, and then it goes, light comes from this side of the page with shadow and darkness on this side, and even like the cat's bright shining eyes are again in the light. So you've gone from darkest to lightest, and so your eye naturally, just to look at it, goes, look at his face, and then it's like, what is he in? Oh my god, look at this mouth, look at this cat. Oh my god, how big is this thing because of the world? That's what you're going for, right?
Yeah. And in comics, word bubbles are bright white, and so those can lead the eye too. And I think a lot of times, like, you can just throw color in and rely on the word bubbles to do it. And that's what a lot of folks do. But I wanted to tap into my illustration chops and see, okay, what if I don't rely on the word bubbles and I do it without? If I can do it without them, then they're just like, icing on top, which is kind of how I wanted it. But I definitely, like, the whole time I was coloring this, I would throw in random white bubbles to make sure that the contrast between the colors on the page, the bright white of the word bubble, wasn't too much. Because if it's too much, you only look at the word bubble, right? Like, because everything else is dark. There's just all that ink. So I was making sure the whole time. And like the whole time I colored it too, I had to make sure it looked good in like 3 different color profiles so that it would print and look decent.
Oh my god!
So each page was in. I didn't color it 3 times, but I checked it to make sure it worked in Adobe RGB, sRGB, and CMYK. I'm nuts about color, man. It's important to me. That's how we see things. So
yeah. So let me drop a massive compliment your way. Before our interview, just the way that your art looks, the way that specifically the colors look, and then your line work is, especially with like Fat Layla, because it's such a round figure, and like the kind of gritty, not necessarily necessary, but the details you put in there that like just paint the world exactly how you want it. My brain almost immediately went to the art of Chris Burnham, who works a lot with like Grant Morrison, who's done Batman and Robin, Nameless, and so many more books that I'm sure I don't know about. But basically, here, I'll bring him up.
Yeah, bring
Because
him
I
up.
think,
I've
yeah,
heard the name. It's not. Oh yeah. Okay.
like this is
Yeah, that's a
his.
good. Now, does he color it too?
Um, you know, off the top of my head, I don't know. Um,
That's okay.
Great artist. I believe he does. I could be wrong.
Okay,
I
cool.
believe he does.
Yeah.
But like that is immediately what came to mind when I saw the book.
Okay.
And the fact that you did all of it on your own, one, again, speaks to your ability, which is fantastic. And if I'm not mistaken, this is your first comic.
I did a comic a couple of years ago that I don't promote.
Okay.
I wanted to make a book to see if I could make a book, and I just threw in a bunch of random shit. I'm sorry for cursing. I don't know if that's okay. But
It's all
I did,
good.
sorry. Yeah, I made the book. I was like, okay, I made a book, and then my next step was like, all right, now I'm going to try to make a good book. So that was my agenda for this one. But yeah, I had been in an anthology before. I just, I really had trouble getting it together and being like, what do I want to make? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what do I want to make? Because I thought, what really stirs up the energy in me, the emotional energy to sit there and fixate on this stuff? You know, because that's really what this is. It's directed and controlled fixation and obsession that I like harness and direct. I wanted to muster up in order to produce the most as impressive spectacle that I could. I needed to work on a topic that could stir that up in me. And so that's kind of why I went the direction I did with it. Because I needed to learn a lot to get this to be how I wanted it to be. And I felt like I could only learn that if I was driven by stuff inside of me. Now I feel like I could do this for other people too. But I don't think I would have learned all this for other people, if that makes sense, you know.
Absolutely, because you're intrinsically motivated to do it. So you did it for you. You've learned all the hard stuff. Now you're just like, well, I have this amazing skill set, and I kind of really like doing it. So,
Yeah,
love it.
Just like, yeah.
So we're like 5 or 10 or 7 minutes from the end of the interview. So I want to get those two questions out. But I guess something that I've been curious about is, given the level of stuff you've learned, the extreme amount of detail and work you've put into it, I guess when did ImPURRfect first have its initial iteration? How long ago was it? And were there any particular parts, whether they were writing it or getting it on a page, that like you weren't able to do because it was just impossible to work out, so you've had to make changes?
Oh yeah, so I did my first book, which has this cat character in it, but he's drawn very differently and it's a lot uglier. It was called Lunacy, right? And that was on Comixology. Fortunately, they took it down, so nobody can see it anymore. But yeah, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to do a sequel to this, and I kept I did the first chapter of the sequel. This is going to be a long graphic novel at first. I drew the first chapter twice, and it wasn't working the way I needed it to. And so, it just wasn't communicating like I needed it to. And so I hired an editor. But I approached the editor, and I was like, listen, I draw pretty well, but I'm not communicating well. And these are the themes I want to work from. Can you mentor me through this process? What I really needed was a mentor. So I was really transparent about how needy I was with the editor, which a lot of people would say you shouldn't do. But I was like, no, this guy he's either on board with the themes I want to address or he's not. he was. He was cool with it. He gave me I wasn't his highest paying gig, but he gave me a lot of extra time. And, it's like, yeah, his name is Fabrice Sapolsky. He gave me as much time as I think he was able to. He's really busy. And he kind of helped me create a launching pad for this. Right. But yeah, he helped me with my storytelling, my visual storytelling and plotting things out and stuff like that.
What's his name again? I want to put him up on screen so people can see him.
Yeah, his name is Fabrice Sapolsky. He is the publisher of Fair Square Comics. He has a lot of Kickstarter projects. I think he's best known for creating Spider-Man Noir. Right? He wrote Spider-Man. He created and wrote Spider-Man Noir, and then he did a book called Intertwined. Yeah, he's been at it for a long time. He's like a veteran, basically.
Well, damn.
Yeah.
Oh, of course it would. Bear with me. Like I said, I want to throw him up to give some acknowledgement. So there we go.
Oh, yeah.
That's the gentleman.
Yeah, check out Fair Square Comics. He's a lovely guy, runs that operation. He's really good to me. And really straightforward. It was great. It was a great experience. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic to hear. I feel like you have such and maybe this comes from all the work you've done on yourself and understanding the way you work, how you relate to the world, dealing with mental health issues and working through them. I feel like you really do understand yourself. And because of that, you can just go, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's what I need. And can you do this or not? And you're willing to take either a no, I can't from that other person and keep moving, or yes, I can, and then work with them. Which just speaks to your character, Sidney. So please keep going. Thanks. We've got 2.5 minutes left. Okay, quick question, and then my last.
I can be flexible on my end, so.
Okay.
I'm flexible. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I want to know so bad. You mentioned that Fat Layla has a Facebook page with 60,000, as in 60 and then 3 more zeros followers.
Yes.
I am aware that with Kickstarter, they will give you a ton of information about who's backing you, where they are, all that kind of stuff. I'm so curious, is most of your backing from Fat Layla's fan page, or do you find that there's a lot of people who you have no clue where they're from and they're just like, hey, cool comic about cats, let's go?
I think maybe about half of it is from her fan page, maybe a little less than half. I can look at the analytics. But yeah, these are not comic people, right? They're not comic fans. But I knew fans. I want comic fans though, because but yeah.
Well, you're 50-50-ish. That's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of the people that gave are strangers. I don't have a ton of I don't have a ton of friendship over the years, So
it happens.
Yeah. So, so a lot of it's strangers from Fat Layla or, people, that I've never met that just came across it.
That's amazing. That's what I love. Is there anyone that's from Tokyo, Melbourne, any crazy location?
Let me take a look. I'm pulling it up right now.
Please do. I love to find this stuff because it's so cool.
Let's see. It might take me a little bit. Okay, here's two people from Scotland, somebody from England, 2 people from England. Yeah, I think that's a. Let's see, where else? Guangdong, I guess, in CN, Australia, people from Australia, the Nairobi area.
Cool.
Yeah. Sao Paulo. Yeah. Prague. That's pretty cool. I never really thought about that. That's pretty sweet.
You've just become an international comics creator. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
So like I said, my last two questions. We're at the full hour now, so we'll get these through, and then we'll have you on your way. So again, folks out there, the name of the book is scrolling through at the bottom. It's ImPURRfect. Go hit Kickstarter. You've got 6 days left to back this book before you've lost your chance on some truly amazing art, wicked, philosophical, existential comics writing, and if nothing else, like some really cool cats. So like, go. Now that being said, Sidney, my last two questions. Often I find folks who make comics read comics, and often I find people who read comics collect them and collect other things like toys, memorabilia, paraphernalia, shirts, cards, posters, what have you. What is the thing in your collection, and maybe not comics, but whatever it is that you collect? What's the thing that you have that maybe not the most expensive, maybe not the most rare, but that makes you the most happy?
Oof. Okay. Yeah, I can think of like. Yeah, I have a lot of Alberto Breccia stuff, right? So I have the reprint of Mort Cinder by Alberto Breccia. I have an original piece of art by Alberto Breccia.
Oh my God.
Yeah. My dad got it for me for my birthday one year. And I love this dude. Yeah. That stuff, that makes me really happy. I'm also really happy to have a lot of Jeff Darrow stuff and a lot of Bill Sienkiewicz stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But like, I just look at it, it just makes me feel so good.
Do me a favor, Jeff Darrow. Spell Darrows for me.
It's Darrow. He did a book called Hard Boiled, and now he's doing Shaolin Cowboy.
Oh, okay. Now I know it. Yeah.
Dude, yeah.
There he is, and yeah, just there it is.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So I kind of stole his approach as best I could. Yeah, for my book.
100%. You know what? It's funny you mentioned that you stole his approach, because again and again and again, whenever I've been in panels, talked with people, or just overheard, one thing comic artists will always say, and I just take it as law, is if you're making art, being a comic artist, don't worry about drawing your art. Draw whoever's art you really like. So Jeff Darrow, Chris Burnham, Jeff Lemire, Jim Lee, whoever, draw their art, emulate their art until you can do it without a reference, and then start tweaking it and go to the next person, because that'll conglomerate to your style. That's sick though, that you've got to keep and have some of their stuff, because that's the coolest thing.
Yeah. I don't have. Yeah, it's when I'm in stuff by Darrow and Sienkiewicz, I don't have original art. I just have their books. But with Breccia, I have a piece of original art. That's one of my prized thing.
Hell yeah.
The fact that his hands touched it, Yeah.
Right. So then, Sidney, my last question for you for tonight, my last hard question. I appreciate, between making a comic, taking the time to do shows like mine and tons of others, having a full-time job, having family, 3 cats, you're a busy man. That being said,
I don't have a full-time job.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
A little easier at least.
Yeah. I am a stay-at-home dad, though.
Oh, no, you have a full-time job then.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
So, given all that stuff you're doing, I appreciate you probably don't have a lot of time for it, but when you do read, what are you reading?
Recently, I read Barry Windsor Smith's Monster. Yeah, it's a 300-page book he worked on for like 40 years. So I read that, and I read. I've started to read Daniel Klaus's Monica, and that's like the sequential stuff that I read. As for just like normal books, I've been reading Wilhelm Reich's The Murder of Christ, which is about like this basically psychodynamics of persecution, and that's been really interesting, really dark.
Yeah,
but yeah.
So is your next book going to also be full of existential dread and like a philosophical exploration? Or are you going to give yourself like a slapstick book to just relax for a bit?
Yeah, so like this book is just the kind of the surface of the stuff, sort of. There's a lot more that I'm working from, and I have 2 other books like plotted out. I'm writing the second one of ImPURRfect, and I have 1 more. I have a 3rd one, and then if those sell well, I'll do a whole arc. But it just keeps going inward. In the next book, the cat's getting a tour of the place that he's going to work at. Right. So he's
all right.
Yeah, and it goes to some dark places. I'm a little worried. When I was plotting it out, I was like, all this nightmare stuff, like that's what's going to get the job done. But I'm writing it, and I'm like, man, this is pretty far. It's nothing like like I'm really pushing the envelope here, even for me. It's not like disgusting, like disgusting, gross violence necessarily. It's just like, there's some, but it's just like, wow, this has got grim really fast. Like I hope I can draw this in a way that's like endearing more than is alienating. So yeah, but that's what I got in store. Yeah.
I'll take it. That's awesome. Then in that case, absolutely, Sidney, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and let us know all about ImPURRfect. Highly appreciated.
Yeah, thank you so much.
For sure. And for the folks at home, remember to comment down below what you think of Sidney, what you think of Fat Layla if you're a fan, and of course what you are excited about for the campaign. Do not forget, ImPURRfect is literally scrolling across the screen. Go find it on Kickstarter. You have 6 days. That's it. And then you've missed your chance for the most amazing cat book you're going to read ever. And yeah, subscribe for more. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day. Yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns. Can't find issue 2. Collector problems, cliffhangers.